What you just saw are faces. Those are faces of real people. Real people that lost their lives in an industry that we love. AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, all the major carriers and all the companies wouldn't mind one bit if those pictures were no longer shown. If we just stopped talking about all the travesties in the industry and the lives lost. But to us, these lives are real. To the families that lost these brave men, it couldn't be more real. My name is Bryce Mallory and I'm tired. I'm tired of the deaths. I'm tired of the funerals. I'm tired about all the transparent, bogus lies that surround all the deaths. I'm tired of OSHA being non-existent. It's time for change. I know that you can feel it in your hearts and you can feel it in the air. The time for change is now. What I'm about ready to say is going to drop the bomb on everybody. My name is Bryce Mallory. You all know me very intimately, I'm sure. I've got a rather loud mouth. I'm going to put myself on the line to make that change. I'm the new organizer for the Tower Hands Union. That means a lot of things. That means a lot of sacrifice. That means a lot of animosity. That means a fight. And a big fight it will be, but I know I won't be alone. I know I have many brothers and sisters out there who are ready for this change. So before I get into everything else, and I'll get a lot more into the whole union aspect and everything that's going to go into it, let me tell you right now that this is not a suggestion. I'm not suggesting that it would be a good idea for us to go union. The talk has went around enough. I'm taking action. I will have adversaries in this, and until a formal collective bargaining agreement is in place with the company, those will be my adversaries. And I have to view it as such. I know there's many company owners that I've befriended over the years. I can't allow that to affect my decisions and what I'm doing right now. It's pretty deep. I had a whole bunch of stuff written down, but it's we've got a lot to go through. I would appreciate you guys hanging in with me, because I got a lot of ground to cover. I'll try to keep it entertaining, because I know some tower hands out there got an ADD mentality just like squirrel. Kidding. This video is addressed to the women in the industry who are climbers, people who consider themselves tower hands. This is not for the company owners. This is not for the carriers. This is for my brothers and sisters, for the men and women who I risk my life beside every day. Now, I do know that my adversaries, as soon as they see this video, they're going to have a couple of different approaches. They're going to try to pull it. They're going to try to ban it in any way, shape, or fashion I can, and they're going to try to silence my voice. I believe that the reaction from you guys is going to surprise them and the nation. One of my keys to success is going to be transparency. Many will try to discredit me, many will try to ridicule me, and many will try to shut me up. But let me start off by telling y'all a little bit about myself. There's a lot that's known, there's some that's not. So I want to hit the good and the bad, and beat everybody to the punch. I started working on the road when I was 16, when I dropped out of high school doing restaurant remodels. When I turned 19, I started doing communication towers. The way that I found out about it was through a good friend of mine named Dave White. Dave White was an animal. He was doing communication towers, and he came back from the road, and he would tell me the most amazing stories of brotherhood, camaraderie, adventure, adrenaline. Dave White was killed on a tower, and it tore me up. I was young then. I didn't know how to deal with death, especially not in the industry. I wasn't even of the industry yet. About 6 months after Dave White died, I decided to join the tower industry. And everything that he had said that sparked my imagination was true 20 times over. Through the ups and the downs and the joy and the pain, I wouldn't trade a day of it. And I'd like to think that the man in the tower hand that I am today, Dave White, would be very, very proud. I've done many aspects of towers, from about 3 years worth of broadcast, running with some of the best people in the industry, to the big boy microwave, all the way down to the millimeter wave, cellular, two-way, AM, FM, Doppler, radar. I've sought after every extreme this industry could offer me, and I've thrived on it. It's made me an adventure seeker, a thrill chaser. In 2009, when the industry had slowed down more than I'd ever seen, normally I could just pick up a phone call and call one of my homeboys and be flown across the country somewhere to do work. But 2009, the industry slowed down, and I was out of work for quite a few weeks, and I took a job offer that I shouldn't have. I was getting paid to transport marijuana. Everything that happened in that time was it was all on me. I can't pin it off on somebody else and say I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for so-and-so. I knew full well that I was doing wrong when I did that. I consider myself of good moral fiber, and that's not something that people of good moral fiber do, which is what makes it a mistake that I paid dearly for. I got arrested in 2009 in Amarillo, Texas, with 209 pounds of marijuana. Now I know, as soon as I say 209 pounds of marijuana, everybody watching this is going to go, "Damn, that's a lot of weed, son." Yeah, that was an awful lot of weed. And I got a awful good sentence for it. The prosecutor wanted to offer me 12. I took it to trial and got 5. And I can attribute that to nothing but the grace of God. I did 2.5 years in the Texas Department of Corrections Penitentiary and 2.5 out on parole. I would like to consider my debt for that paid, and ask that for those viewing me, as you judge me right now, take that in consideration before you judge me too harshly. And I became a better man since. Coming out of prison, going back into the tower industry. Prison gave me a lot of time to think, personal introspective. What's important to me? I mean, I was ahead of the game already. Most people want to go to prison and blame everybody else. I knew I was already there because of my dumbass decisions. So I took that time to think about myself and what was important to me. And the deaths in the industry, and the madness, and the abuse of the climbers, and the thefts of the paychecks, and everything that happens because companies are able to operate with impunity and do whatever the fuck it is that they want to because they have the money. That's what's important to me. How to stop that. I devised what I thought was a rather brilliant game plan to use the placement company that I'd started, Badass Hiring Consultants, to effect a change. I could talk for hours about it, but after a lot of consultation with lawyers, and it turns out, I don't know if you've ever consulted a lawyer or not, them motherfuckers are not cheap at all. So after much consultation with them, it turns out that what I was doing skirted the line very closely to what's called collective bargaining. I was on the right track with not quite the right answer. And in later broadcasts, I'll tell you what finally got my mind around to union and why that would be the right answer. I've done many things since I've gotten out of prison. I've made lists of myself of what I think needed changed. One of which was women in the industry. I've become an advocate not only for tower hands, but for women climbers. I created a page called Elevated Estrogen, and I wrote a rather in-depth article that was controversial, which I meant it to be, to shake up the industry and open people's minds and change old mindsets and old mentalities, to bring people around to the idea that this is not only a brotherhood, but it's a sisterhood as well. Change. Much has changed with me. Some of you may have followed, I met a homeless Vietnam veteran by the name of Michael. And it was about 2 months before I got off parole. I spent 6 months with him, trying to help get him back off his feet. And looking back on it, I never could quite completely understand why God brought him into my life, or brought me into his life. But it was the other way around. God brought him into my life. From my time with him, from his stories that he told me about his times in Vietnam, they enriched me spiritually. They solidified my resolve. And it helped to bring me to the understanding that I've already known, but I know now clear as day, that there is a time to draw a line in the sand and fight. And for unionization, it will be just that. It's a scary word. It scares companies. It scares carriers. Tell me you ain't never heard of a company saying if you just mention the word union, you're fucking fired. Because it scares them. It scares them for them to have an accountability to us. When y'all make that phone call out in the field and you get the answer back saying, I don't care what, I don't care. Just do it. That doesn't mean it's going to be right. That doesn't mean it's going to be safe. But the company in effect is telling you you're going to lose your fucking job if you don't do it. Who do you call then? You want to call OSHA? OSHA's a joke and pretty much non-existent in our industry. In OSHA's eyes, they could find a company $100,000, turn around 2 months later after a fatality, and reduce it down to 10%. Your bro's life is worth 10 G's. That's what he's worth. That's what OSHA's saying. And matter of fact, I'll get back to the OSHA fine reduction. Please know that throughout the entire course of this video and every other video that I make and anything that I say publicly or privately from here forward is my own personal opinions, my own thoughts, my own words. I don't speak for anybody but myself. Keeping that in mind, let me talk about a couple of things. First, the Hubble Foundation. Dr. Jet Hester is the closest thing to an angel I think any of us will ever meet this side of heaven. In 2010, her husband, John Hubble, and another gentleman, Barry Sloan, two amazing individuals, were on a guide tower that collapsed. Throughout this tragedy, Dr. Hubble did something, Dr. Hester, did something unprecedented. Where some would have taken the money and spent it on who knows what else. Dr. Hester took a majority of the settlement and made the Hubble Foundation a true, legitimate, endearing, humbling foundation whose sole purpose was to show compassion to the widows and the orphans of our industry. I've gotten to know her and the foundation very well. And Ronnie. Hi, Ronnie. Once unionized, we need to find a way to incorporate and give greatly to the foundation for the families of the people that have still died. Let me talk about Nate for a second. I can't think of any better way to phrase this, but Nate is not your fucking friend. Oh wait, one more disclaimer. As I'm talking to you, my brothers and sisters in the industry, before you slam me with unprofessionalism and how the fuck it is that I'm talking to y'all right now as if we were both sitting in a hotel room after work drinking a beer. I'm going to allow myself to be relaxed. That's not for your comfort, that's for my comfort. Because this is heavy shit we're talking about. I want to feel at ease. I hope you guys can accept that. So Nate, yeah, the best way I can start out is Nate is not your fucking friend. Nate does not give a fuck about you at all. Nate is an association. It's a membership of companies that pay dues every year to this association. Now there's an official reason why they give money. And on the public end, they say it's to help you, the climber. That's fucking bullshit. Because if a Nate company has a fatality, if a Nate company has claims from its climbers that it's doing them wrong, giving them inadequate safety gear, stealing their checks, leaving them stranded on the side of the road away from their families at Christmas time, Do you think Nate is going to penalize one of its own paying members? Hell the fuck no. Hell no. They're not going to risk losing the membership from that company just to smack them in the nuts a little bit and say you did wrong. They don't. Matter of fact, it's so shameless how much they don't care, and nobody even calls them on it. Let's talk about the Nate-OSHA partnership. Nate and OSHA formed a partnership years ago, and they broadcast it louder than shit. Nate-OSHA partnership, Nate-OSHA partnership. And it was them to show their way that they're working with Nate. Well, in that Nate-OSHA partnership, and Nate actually advertised it as a perk of being a Nate member, was fine reduction. Everybody's all bent out of shape about fine reductions now? Hell, Nate started that trend with OSHA. Look it up. It's in public records. But it wasn't for fatalities. It was for minor infractions that if fixed, or whatever the fuck it was they said, they could get a reduction or an elimination of the fines. And if you'll notice, after they broadcast it louder than shit, at a certain point they pulled the plug on it with radio silence. Shh, and they hushed it down. Well, this is just conjecture on my part, but you know what? Maybe they formed that partnership. Maybe they formed that partnership. Maybe some money got exchanged behind the scenes. I don't know. I'm not in the inner workings of Nate. And if something dirty like that were to happen, they sure as fuck wouldn't admit it. They sure as fuck wouldn't announce it. But why would you want to reduce fines in the first place? If a company does wrong, this is serious shit. We lose our brothers over this shit. Why would you want a company to think it's okay on anything? Oh, okay. This shit could have killed somebody, and I got a fine for it. It didn't kill anybody, but I'm getting a fine because it's a safety infraction. So if I fix this, nobody died, no harm, no foul, right? Pay a little bit of money. Oh, I'm a Nate member. No, I ain't got to pay shit. Thanks, OSHA. Thanks, Nate. No. The wool's being pulled over everybody's eyes. I went with Dr. Hester to a Nate convention in 2014. And this is her first time going to a convention, first time moving and shaking with the companies, introducing the foundation. At the end of the convention, the board of directors met with Dr. Hester behind closed doors and interviewed her, and asked her a little bit about herself, the foundation, the way it operates, what she does. And not long after that, they came out with their own nonprofit foundation. And you can't help but wonder, if you know Dr. Hester and the Hubble Foundation, why they wouldn't just contribute to an already existing foundation. I see past what they want everybody else to see. It was a smack in the mouth to the foundation, and it wasn't just because they really care about the families. What they did is they compiled their blood money, and yeah, I use that term, blood money. They compiled their blood money to make their own nonprofit foundation. Now, these companies that didn't donate to Dr. Hester before, knowing she's out there, everybody knows Dr. Hester's foundation is out there. So these Nate companies that didn't donate to her before, they're donating now to the nonprofit built inside of an association of companies with a political agenda. And the political agenda is their own money and their own company survival and well-being. The carriers that didn't donate to Dr. Hester and the foundation and all of the good works that she does for the widows and orphans, I'm sure the carriers are now donating to the Nate Foundation. Check their motives. You ever wonder why people do stuff? Check their reasoning, their motives behind doing it. Let me go back to OSHA. One of my friends advised me on not using this exact phrase, but I really like it. OSHA can suck my balls. From everything that I've seen of OSHA, they can suck my fucking balls. I was at that Nate convention. In the middle of the convention, the keynote speaker was the #2 guy from OSHA. And he addressed the convention and all the companies and all the people there and said that they are doubling their efforts because they are so concerned about all these fatalities of all of our friends, all of our comrades dying, that they are stepping it up in the tower industry for safety. Now, it was so important that he made that address, but not quite important enough for him to show up personally. It was a videotaped address. Fake. So I took him up on it, actually, twice. In 2014, I called OSHA 2 times. Before anybody uses the word fuck, if you use the word snitch, fuck you, because that is not me. When I got my charge for the weed, and I'm not proud of it by any means, but I did right. By right, I mean it was my fuck up. I shut my fucking mouth and I did my fucking time. I'm not a snitch. But OSHA is supposed to be there to ensure the safety and the lives of my brothers, even according to the video address. So I called him on it twice. The first time, one of my bros was working for one of the bigger people. We'll say it was Nexius, who then became Balex. That was a funny magic trick. Or Bechtel or West Tower. One of the, I'm not going to say which one of the big ones. He was on site, and you can tell by looking at the boom. My buddy ain't no fool. You can tell by looking at the booms, it was rusted as fuck, and a man had no business out on that boom, let alone a 200, a fucking heavy as shit air antenna. Looking through his paperwork, turns out it's failed structural. The site failed structural, and the company wanted to proceed anyways. So after he escalated up his chain, he kept continually getting the same response, which was, if you're incapable of doing it, then we'll just relocate your crew to another market, probably someplace great, Kansas City, New Jersey, Alaska, Russia, and we'll bring in another crew that can do it. This shit happens all the time. You know what? You want to know why they were able to do that? Because they can. They didn't even flinch when they tried to endanger my bro. Told them, get the fuck out there and do it anyways. So I called OSHA. I walked them through all the different points of the investigation and what should go on, because a lot of them are unknowledgeable, and I gave them a step-by-step detailed analysis of what they should be looking for and how to proceed. They never did shit. They never showed up. They never called the company. I followed up with it. They didn't do a fucking thing. The second time, another one of my bros was working for this company. He just came down. There were 2 inexperienced guys up top, and they dropped 2 large carabiners on him. Hit him in his back, broke 2 of his ribs, bruised his lungs were bleeding. He was in ICU for a week and a half. Of course, the company owner came and wanted to reassure him that everything's going to be just fine. You know, don't sue us. We got you taken care of. As soon as I got him on a flight back home, within 2 days of being home, they pulled his workman's comp. Now, I called OSHA right after the accident and walked them through everything that they needed to do the investigation. And what they did shocked the hell out of me. No, they didn't do the right thing. That would have really shocked me. No, they sent a letter to the company saying that OSHA's overtaxed on the personnel, the manpower, and the funding, and that there was a report of an incident, but they weren't even really going to investigate. They just wanted the company to do its own internal audit, and if anything was wrong, just to let them know. That'd be like if you were alleged of doing check forgery. I was the FBI, and I knocked on your door and said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, got some allegations of check forgery and all that other bad stuff. We're not even going to look around. But if you do your own internal investigation, and if you find anything that you've been doing illegally, just let us know so we can arrest you. What the fuck? All right. So we're going to take a break on all this real quick, and we're going to take a look at what the fuck it is that we really do every day. What is this job that, because of the companies, because of the carriers, that people lose their lives for? What is it that we thrive on, that we enjoy every day? Let's look at what makes us fucking tower hands. Now, keep in mind, my adversaries are going to try to pull this video however they can. So, in accordance with sections 107 through 118 at various different points of U.S. Code Title 17, I brought this. Now, the pictures you're about ready to see might have came from your Facebook. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, I borrowed some of your pictures. Hope you don't mind. But if anybody wants to scream copyright, that's what this is for. Because under that title, if it's a parody, instructional, a couple other things. I've incorporated a lot of things. It's called the Fair Use Act. And I'm all good. And I actually have no qualms stepping up in front of a federal court with this video and saying, how could it not be a parody? Did you not see the fucking lightsaber? Duh. Alright, so, let me wind up some music another way around. All the copyrights, all the beats on this tape, they're all from my friend Gordon. Gordon, you're the man. Gordon, roll that shit.
Bryce, you gotta wake up. All these companies ain't unionized yet.
Oh shit. Hell yeah, son. Been working night and day. Oh shit. Yeah, I'm sure you guys can imagine this is a full-time deal right here. Alright, so one of the things I didn't mention in my first previous part was, as I was telling everything about myself and who I am, I forgot to mention that I was in the Army. Served 6 years in the United States Army Reserves, the last 3 as a drill sergeant. I was tasked with instructing infantry basic training to new recruits. I'll have plenty of time to talk about that later. I really want to get down to the rest of this. But in case y'all are wondering, the hat that I'm wearing, a very nice lady got me and Uncle Mike a set of matching hats when we were blistering down in Texas. And that's another story in and of itself too. But the patch at the top is that's my drill sergeant patch for my Class A's. So let's talk about what a union is. A union, throughout history, has been a collective body of workers that have had a unified voice, and they vote and they appoint people to represent them to the companies. It then makes the companies accountable to the workers. It's a very powerful thing, and it's a very scary thing for the companies themselves, because they're not able to just do whatever they want. Treat the guys poorly, have a hand in on having the guys killed by extreme time pressures, lack of safety equipment. So how would this help us? By having a unified voice and a unified body of union tower hands. These companies, I can't think of a better way to say it. Companies will act right. The carriers, AT&T, Singular, T-Mobile, all these people will act right as well. Because once we have a collective bargaining agreement in place with every tower company in the country, uniformity will then be mandatory. And it will be mandatory because we have made it so. There have been a bunch of different small camps sprouting up in this atmosphere of change that we have. Most of them call themselves like a trade association. That's, without spending way too much time on exactly what the differences are, there's the way that's been tried up until this point. Then there's the trade associations. And then there's actually going full out and fighting and making a union. The term trade association, I think, is used so that the carriers and the companies will be a little bit more amicable when negotiations start. They're a way to still try diplomacy, and my friends, diplomacy has fucking failed miserably. The union approach that I'm taking, the route that we're going with this fight, is the other extreme from where we're at. The next notch up would be the trade associations. And then full blown, we're going union. So just know that what we're doing, it's just not as soft as the trade association. It's a little bit more hardcore. And it's going to be a lot more of a fight. But most tower hands I met, they ain't scared of a fight. So a lot of y'all are talking about existing unions, IBEW, Afl-CIO, Ironworkers Union. For up until about 3 weeks ago, for a month period of time, I courted all the major unions to try to get them involved in this fight. And they've all had their eye on our industry for years, but we're such an obscure industry, nobody really knows it like we do. They know the number of deaths, they know the insanity that's going on, but from my take, they just don't want to step in the arena unless victory has been assured. And while a lot of them express to me extreme interest, actions speak louder. And I don't know, I think for the ones that sincerely had extreme interest, they were so tied up with their own internal processes that even if they wanted to, they couldn't jump out the gate and fight right now. So for many other reasons, we need to make our own union for ourselves, by ourselves, because nobody knows this industry as well as we all do, and nobody will care as much about the change that's needed in the industry and the future of this industry more so than us. So they really didn't want to step in the arena unless they were guaranteed victory. I am so sure of what this is that I'm getting ready to do that I'm willing to bet my life on it. And that's not an exaggeration. Those that don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. Look up union organizers throughout history. People want to kill them. People aren't happy with that. When you start fucking with rich people's money, some of them have a motive to want to stop that. And with money comes the ability to make some things happen. But I'm good with that. If I would risk my life on the tower for any one of you guys any day of the week, why would I not do so now? Never before in all my years in dealing with death and dangerous situations in the industry have I ever done anything like this. But as this video is being made, prior to release, I'm getting my affairs in order. If any one of these companies, any one of these carriers want to try to take a shot at me, I'm ready to go anytime. Anytime. But it ain't going to be easy. And if anybody, and I'm sure any man that has family that they love would say the same thing, if anybody tries to threaten my life or my family's, of course I will respond with every bit of justifiable deadly force granted to me by state and federal law. So that's my viewpoint of where the game's at. 18 months. I am setting a deadline for 18 months from now that every tower company in the country will be unionized. If you work at a tower company right now, your company is on the list. This is another reason it makes the companies a little bit more fearful, because while everybody has talked about unions, I'm actively doing it. I'm going to be, there's a lot that needs to be done. I'll be identifying companies, the amount of employees per company, to know to be able to know the numbers I'll need for the percentages for the votes, getting the votes together, ready to go. A transition test is going to need to be created for going from non-union to union. What is an apprentice? What is a journeyman? If you're a foreman, what is it that you need to know, and ensuring that foremen know what they need to know when being entrusted with red lives on the site, and giving people the opportunity to get the testing that they need to get to that point. We need a national uniform safety standard. Nate has compiled one of their own, and I guess they're getting a big round of applause about it, but honestly, I don't fucking trust it. Because it's made with their money, with their interest in mind, I don't trust a safety standard coming from the same companies that, let's be honest, a good portion of them have made those phone calls back to the field and said, just do it, or you're fired. So if a man lift or if a boom truck was needed with a man basket on a site, those are some of the same companies that say, well, can you just do it anyways? That's who wrote that standard. Members of that organization. So we need one written by us, by unbiased climbers, unbiased tower hands, the most knowledgeable in the industry, to create the standardized testing for the transition and for the national safety standard. God, this is just so cool. My greatest victories in the industry have been in HR offices, towing the line and stepping up 4 tower hands. And now I get a chance to do it nationally. For the companies that you're working at within the next 18 months, I will be sitting across the negotiation table with them to get our collective bargaining agreement signed. Collective bargaining agreement. Lawyers are going to be needing to get gotten together. I'm going to create the most comprehensive collective bargaining agreement imaginable, leaving absolutely no wiggle room for any company that signs it, because I'm sure that you know that even though a portion of companies are people that you can shake a man's hand and take him at his word, some of them ain't. I'm not giving anybody the option. Some of these companies can be slippery snakes. So the wording and the structure, the framework and the architecture of this collective bargaining agreement will be like never seen before. So I guess putting it all in a nutshell, it's a fight. This is going to be a big fight. I'm going to create a GoFundMe account. Donate, please. This is your fight too. If you want change in your workplace, you want your workplace to be unionized, fund this fight. I'm bringing it to you. Your risk and your exposure for just checking yes is not really going to be that bad. I'm going to make it as easy as I can on y'all and as hard as I can on them. I'll leave y'all with this. I listen to some gangster rap. I love classic rock. I love country. I love country and western. I love western movies. One analogy that I really like in western movies, back in the old west, there wasn't police stations right down the street from everybody to regulate everything. Some people lived rather remotely. And when somebody killed somebody else's family members, they would get their family together, they would posse up, and they'd ride out. My brothers and sisters, it's time to saddle up. Let's ride, y'all. You'll be hearing from me.